At a fading music store, a young black saxophonist plays for an elderly white owner with a failing heart. Her music stirs life into a soul long resigned to silence. But when his son returns with a lawyer, demanding to sell the store and erase his father's life's work, the young woman makes a bold, irreversible choice, one that could shatter her own future, yet might just save the store, mend a fractured bond, and spark a new beginning for them both. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thought. It was February in New York City. The biting wind whipped through the narrow streets, carrying the damp smell of concrete and the city's endless rush. The whole city felt like a giant symphony, but Kelly felt like a lost note, drowned out by the loud, unfamiliar sounds. At 22 years old, she was a black woman who just graduated with a prestigious music degree, but she was struggling to find her footing. Every single day was a relentless battle against financial burdens. She lived in a tiny apartment in Harlem, barely enough room for an old bed and a few cardboard boxes of her things. The room was cold, often damp on rainy days, and the constant street noise outside bled through the thin walls, making her sleep restless. Many nights she'd lie awake, staring at the empty ceiling, her stomach growling because dinner was just a pack of instant noodles. Rent was a constant dread, and she often worked odd jobs, washing dishes at a late-night diner, handing out flyers in the snow, or even busking in the subway with her old saxophone, just to survive in this city. Her feet were used to walking miles to save on bus fare, her slender shoulders weighed down by her own hopes and her family's. Loneliness and pure exhaustion, both physical and mental, sometimes crept into her mind, making her wonder if her musical dream was worth sacrificing everything. But each time she almost gave in. A stubborn voice inside her whispered, "Not yet, not yet." The music's still there, and whenever she thought of her saxophone, a spark ignited within her, reminding her why she was still here. In the Lower East Side, tucked among old brick buildings and graffiti-covered walls, was a small music store called The Old Melody. It looked bleak, as if forgotten by time and the city's hustle, radiating a sadness like a song without words. Kelly, on her way to a restaurant interview nearby, ducked inside to escape the rain. She had no idea that behind that old wooden door, a part of her destiny waited. Inside the Old Melody, the dimly lit space smelled of old wood and years of dust. Ancient instruments hung silently on the walls like forgotten souls. Sitting quietly by an old piano was Mr. Arthur, a 70-year-old white piano craftsman. His hair was white as snow, his blue eyes dulled by time and the heavy burden of a severe heart condition. The illness was slowly draining his strength, and financial strain had pushed his beloved store, once his greatest pride, to the edge of bankruptcy. He brushed his trembling fingers on the keys, producing only a few scattered, desolate notes, heavy with helplessness and despair. The Old Melody was more than just a store. It was Mr. Arthur's entire life, where he'd poured all his passion and devotion. But there was something few knew. Somewhere in this store, precious keepsakes of his late wife, Eleanor, a talented but short-lived jazz singer, might be hidden. Eleanor was once the soul of the Old Melody, with her enchanting voice and original unreleased compositions. She'd given up her career to care for Mr. Arthur when he fell gravely ill, then passed away from a mysterious illness, taking her unfinished melodies with her. Now Mr. Arthur faced losing everything, even the sacred memories of Eleanor. He often sighed, looking at an old photo of a blond boy, Ethan, his son. Ethan, a successful software engineer living in California, had cut ties long ago, only occasionally sending small sums of money as an obligation. He saw the store as an outdated burden, a legacy he never wanted to inherit. Ethan had grown up watching his father become too engrossed in music and the store, sometimes neglecting their family for his compositions. This made him resentful and distant from everything the Old Melody represented. Mr. Arthur knew he was truly alone and helpless, needing help he didn't know where to find. Despair enveloped his old, frail soul, casting a hazy, almost hopeless shadow over the future of the Old Melody. He often wondered if anyone would ever truly understand the silence that had settled in his life since Eleanor left. a silence broken only by the creak of the old floorboards and the whispers of his own regrets. Kelly struck up a conversation with Mr. Arthur, asking for directions, her eyes betraying curiosity and a hint of admiration for the instrument-filled space. Mr. Arthur gave directions, and Kelly thanked him, but her gaze kept being drawn to the instruments hanging on the walls. She sensed a deep sadness permeating the store's quiet atmosphere, and a desire to share, to bring a little warmth kindled within her. Her heart told her that music might be the answer. Maybe her music, the one thing she truly had, could reach this quiet old man. She offered to play. "Would you like me to play something, sir? Perhaps music can help ease your sadness." Mr. Arthur looked at Kelly in surprise, then nodded slightly, a rare, gentle smile gracing his face. "You? You are very kind. I am very grateful." Kelly gently took an old saxophone from the wall, a tarnished silver saxophone worn from time and countless bumps on subway rides, placed it to her lips and began to play. Haunting, warm blues notes filled the air, telling a story of sorrows and hopes. Kelly's music didn't just fill the space, it touched Mr. Arthur's heart, driving away the gloom that weighed on his mind. Mr. Arthur closed his eyes, feeling every note. It had been a long time since he'd felt the vibrancy of music in the old melody, a warm current spreading through every cell. He hadn't realized how much he'd missed it, how deeply the silence had truly settled. This young woman, with her worn-out horn, was breathing life back into his dying world. When Kelly finished, he opened his eyes, a rare spark of light within them, like a flame newly kindled in the dark. "Wonderful," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "Your music, it's like a fire warming my heart." Mr. Arthur's words touched Kelly, making her realize that despite her own struggles, she could still bring meaning to others. She looked at the old photographs on the walls, musicians, black, white, Asian, all lost in music. This was a place where music transcended all boundaries. From that day on, the old melody was no longer just a sad music store, but became Kelly's rare sanctuary in the harsh heart of New York. She made it a point to visit whenever she had free time, not just to play music, but also to help Mr. Arthur clean and organize everything. She asked for nothing, simply wishing to share the burden with this kind old man. Kelly carefully wiped down each instrument, seeing them as old friends waiting to be awakened. She also helped him sort through old sheet music, rediscovering melodies that had been forgotten by time. Mr. Arthur gradually opened up, telling Kelly about his life, the ups and downs of the store, and his fear of losing his life's work. He spoke of loyal customers, of late nights spent composing, and of his dream of passing the store on to the next generation. His voice was filled with nostalgia and regret at the thought of everything ending. Kelly listened intently, her eyes sparkling with empathy. She also shared about her own life, the difficulties of finding a job, how she struggled to get by, and her burning passion for music. She didn't complain, simply recounting it as part of her journey of growth. She found comfort in sharing her vulnerability, a connection forming that she rarely experienced in the vast, indifferent city. They found a kindred spirit in each other, two souls who loved art, despite the age and racial differences. Mr. Arthur cherished Kelly like a true friend, a granddaughter he never had who brought light to his twilight years. He felt a warmth, a sense of family he hadn't known since Eleanor left. Perhaps he thought he wasn't as alone as he believed. As for Kelly, she respected him as a mentor, a grandfather, who offered her a place for her soul to rest, and a small but meaningful purpose. Their relationship grew, not just in affection, but in trust and mutual reliance. The peace didn't last. One afternoon, the door of the old melody opened again, and a middle-aged man with a worried expression walked in. It was Ethan, Mr. Arthur's son, returning from California after hearing about his father's health. Ethan was a successful software engineer, accustomed to numbers and profits. His eyes were sharp and pragmatic. He looked around the store with discomfort, then quickly embraced his father, but only briefly. His gaze swept over Kelly, pausing with a displeased frown, as if she were an unwelcome anomaly in his sight. "Did you hire someone here, Dad?" She She doesn't look like the kind of people you usually work with," he said quietly to Mr. Arthur, not even bothering to look directly at Kelly, an act of subtle disdain. Ethan felt a prickle of irritation. This wasn't how he envisioned his father's final days, certainly not with some stranger taking up space in his childhood home. And he saw only a liability, a threat to his carefully constructed plan. Ethan quickly expressed his intention to sell the old melody. To Ethan, this was just a failing investment that needed to be liquidated as soon as possible, a burden from the past that needed to be cut off. After talking to his father and learning about the struggling business, Ethan became even more determined to close the old melody and sell the property to a large real estate developer. He even brought in a lawyer, Mr. Davies, a sharply dressed man with a forced smile, to push the deal through. Mr. Davies looked at Kelly with a critical eye, then told Ethan, "It seems this store has an unwanted guest. That could affect the transaction." That evening, Kelly was sitting in a corner of the store, preparing sheet music for an important audition next week, a rare opportunity for a gig at a jazz club. She heard a heated argument from Mr. Arthur's office. Ethan's voice was full of impatience, mixed with contempt. "Dad, you can't live in the past forever. This store isn't profitable anymore. I've found a buyer. Just agree and I'll move you somewhere better to rest." Mr. Arthur tried to explain, his voice weak, "But this is my whole life, my passion." Kelly held her breath, a sense of unease rising within her. "Passion? Dad, look, this place is falling apart, and that girl," Ethan said, his voice suddenly shifting to a cold, pointed tone as he glanced at Kelly from head to toe with a judgmental look, as if she wasn't worthy of being there. "Who is she? Some stranger you picked up? Do you even know anything about her? She could be trying to take advantage of you, or does she think music pays the rent?" Erathon's words felt like needles piercing Kelly. She felt deeply offended by his blatant distrust, his hasty judgment, and the hidden prejudice in his words. Her stomach churned. She was tired of fighting, tired of being judged before she even spoke. Was this what New York truly was? A place where kindness was met with suspicion? She realized that her frequent presence here not only led to misunderstandings, but also put Mr. Arthur in an awkward position, further complicating the argument between father and son. Her faint hope for a stable job at the jazz club suddenly flickered out. That night, Kelly couldn't sleep. She felt small and lost in this vast city, where prejudice and material gain seemed to dictate everything, and where kindness was sometimes viewed with suspicion. The next morning, Kelly walked into the store with a decision already made. She wrote a short letter to Mr. Arthur expressing her gratitude and asking to leave. She didn't want to be a burden or a cause for further tension between father and son. As she quietly packed her belongings, Mr. Arthur appeared, his face pale with exhaustion and sadness. "Kelly, where are you going?" His voice was hoarse, filled with worry. Mr. Arthur read the letter, his eyes welling up. "You heard my conversation with Ethan, didn't you?" He choked, his hand trembling as he took Kelly's. "You brought music and joy back to this place. You are a friend I cherish. I don't want you to leave." Mr. Arthur's words pierced Kelly's heart, making her feel even more pain at having to leave this place, and the old man who had become so dear to her. A part of her wanted to run, to save herself, but seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, she couldn't. He was desperate, and she felt a responsibility she couldn't ignore. Just then, Ethan walked in, still holding the papers related to the store's sale. He saw Kelly packing, his face cold, and a faint mocking smile appeared. "So she knows her place after all," Ethan said, his voice sarcastic. "Dad, you trust outsiders and then they abandon you." Mr. Arthur looked at his son, then at Kelly. A determination flickered in his dim blue eyes. "No, Ethan," he said, his voice weak but firm. "Kelly is not an outsider, and I will not sell this store." Ethan angrily threw the stack of papers onto the table, the dry sound echoing. "What are you going to do, live in this ruin forever? Or do you want to entrust your whole life to an outsider like her?" He looked at Kelly defiantly, his eyes hateful. "Do you know the price you'll pay for this, father? I will never come back again if you don't change." Mr. Arthur looked at his son, hurt. He knew Ethan was sacrificing family ties to force him. He turned to Kelly, his eyes full of apology. You should go, Kelly. Don't miss your chance because of me." Kelly looked at Mr. Arthur. She knew he was facing a cruel choice, and she was part of that burden. She also looked at Ethan, seeing the arrogance, the ignorance, and the deep-seated prejudice in his eyes. She took a deep breath. In her pocket was the important audition letter, her dream of a new life, a way out of her difficult circumstances. It was a tremendous loss and sacrifice, potentially determining her entire future. The door to a better life was right in front of her, but she chose to turn her back on it. Her heart told her that kindness must come first, that some values cannot be bought with money. It was a leap of faith, a desperate gamble, but something deep inside her refused to let this place, this kind old man, be swallowed by indifference. A radiant, determined smile bloomed on Kelly's lips. "Mr. Arthur, I won't give up, and I won't leave you alone." Kelly pulled out the audition letter without hesitation, tore it in two, and threw it to the floor. The crisp sound of tearing paper echoed in the silent space like a powerful declaration. "We will organize a concert right here, Mr. Arthur," she said, her voice resonant, full of resolve. "A fundraiser to save the old melody. We will prove that this place is worth more than just money." Mr. Arthur was stunned. Ethan's jaw dropped, his face pale with shock. "You're crazy," he blurted out. "Maybe," Kelly said, her eyes burning with determination, "but I believe in music, and I believe in you, Mr. Arthur." Immediately after Kelly's declaration, another major obstacle hit. Mr. Davies, Ethan's lawyer, announced that the store would be foreclosed within 1 week if a huge debt wasn't paid. This was a heavy blow, leaving both Kelly and Mr. Arthur stunned. Time was running out, and the challenge seemed overwhelming. In that moment of despair, Kelly suddenly remembered a secret cellar door she'd noticed once before. She asked Mr. Arthur about it. He hesitated for a moment, then with a look of complete trust in Kelly, he decided to open it. Inside was a small world of memories, old instruments, faded photographs, and a small wooden chest. Upon opening the chest, Kelly and Mr. Arthur discovered dozens of old, handwritten musical scores, some unfinished. These were the unreleased compositions of Eleanor, Mr. Arthur's wife, a talented but short-lived jazz artist. Mr. Arthur had hidden them away after Eleanor's passing, unable to bear the pain of seeing her unfinished dreams. He'd even forgotten about the small, hidden compartment where they were stored over the years, consumed by grief and the struggles of the store. One particular piece, titled Eleanor's Lament, caught Kelly's eye. It was a mournful yet vibrant piece, with complex and emotional jazz notes. A glimmer of hope flickered in their darkest hour. It was like a gift from the past, a whispered promise of strength from Eleanor herself. This wasn't just a concert now, it was a tribute, a revival. The decision to organize the concert was made quickly, but the journey to make it a reality was arduous. Kelly knew she had to work twice as hard to make up for her lack of event organizing experience. She started by designing simple, handwritten posters, writing every word by hand, then diligently plastered them all over the Lower East Side streets, from small coffee shops to community bulletin boards. Sometimes she was met with curious glances, sometimes with skeptical looks. Will anyone even come? That question haunted her every night, as she huddled in her cold, cramped apartment, looking out at the New York night sky. Doubt was a constant companion, but the image of Mr. Arthur's frail hope kept her going. During the day, Kelly still had to hustle with her dishwashing job at the restaurant, sometimes taking on babysitting or cleaning gigs to earn enough for daily meals and some supplies for the concert. She seized every spare moment to practice saxophone, the sound of her horn echoing in the small room, occasionally drowned out by car horns outside or noisy neighbor chatter. Physical exhaustion was constant, but her spirit burned bright. Mr. Arthur, invigorated, helped Kelly contact a few of his old musician friends who had also been connected to the old melody. They all enthusiastically agreed to participate. One day before the concert, as Kelly was checking the old sound system, there was a loud crack. The main speaker was completely broken. She panicked. This was a major setback. The store didn't have enough money to repair or buy a new one. But now They had Eleanor's music. Kelly and Mr. Arthur decided to use the antique instruments in the store itself, performing as organically as possible so the true sound would touch the audience's hearts. Ethan, initially still skeptical, didn't interfere. He just watched Kelly work, from arranging chairs to checking the antique sound system to setting up the makeshift lighting. He found himself strangely compelled by her relentless energy, a sharp contrast to his own calculated approach to life. Kelly also leveraged her few connections, sending emails to small jazz clubs she knew, hoping to attract more audience members. Every afternoon, after an exhausting shift, she would return to the store, tired but with determination sparkling in her eyes, preparing for the big day. This was more than just saving a store. It was Kelly's way of affirming the value of kindness and the power of passion. On the day of the concert, the old melody was completely transformed. Warm yellow lights illuminated the space, dispelling its usual gloom. The atmosphere was filled with excitement and hope. Kelly stood backstage, heart pounding. She peeked out. At first there were just a few people, but little by little, unfamiliar and familiar faces filled the space. Curious neighbors, Mr. Arthur's old friends, and even music lovers who happened to pass by were drawn in by the music coming from inside. Even a few who had visited the store with doubtful eyes were now present, standing at the back, their gazes scrutinizing. Ethan stood in a hidden corner, still a bit skeptical, but he didn't interfere. He just watched silently, curiosity gradually replacing his indifference. When Kelly stepped onto the small stage, her saxophone gleaming under the lights, she announced the special piece she and Mr. Arthur had found, Eleanor's Lament. She explained that it was an unreleased composition, a legacy of the old melody's soul, and of Eleanor, who had lived and died for music. And she began to play. Haunting blues notes, improvised jazz melodies filled the air. It wasn't just music. It was the story of the hardships she had endured, the trust she placed in Mr. Arthur, and the hope they were building together. Kelly's saxophone didn't just fill the space, it resonated deep within every listener's heart, drawing them into a world of melody and raw emotion. Ethan, standing in the corner, heard every note, and a distant memory suddenly flooded back, the image of his mother singing a similar lullaby. He saw Mr. Arthur gently wipe away tears. A profound ache settled in Ethan's chest, a realization of the beauty he had dismissed, the connection he had lost. His eyes suddenly welled up, a wave of guilt and regret washing over him. He realized what he had lost. Mr. Arthur sat in the front row, his eyes welling up as he watched Kelly. He felt the fire of musical passion still burning brightly within his own heart, now passed on to those around him. This was more than just a concert. It was a reaffirmation of everything he believed in, everything he had built. Ethan saw the radiant faces of the audience, the tears of emotion in an old man's eyes. He began to hear whispers of praise for Kelly, for the soul she had brought to the store. It wasn't just about money. He realized the true value of the old melody lay in the memories, the emotions, and the melodies that had connected generations. A strange warm feeling slowly crept into his heart, which had only ever known numbers. He regretted his harsh words, his narrow-mindedness. When the concert ended, the applause was ceaseless, prolonged as if unwilling to stop, blending with cheers and shouts of appreciation. The money raised was not only enough to pay off immediate debts, but also lit a new spark of hope for the old melody. Ethan walked straight to Kelly and his father, his eyes much softer now, no longer arrogant or prejudiced. I'm sorry, Dad, Ethan said, his voice choked with sincere emotion. I was so short-sighted, I didn't realize how much this place means. Then he turned to Kelly, extending his hand. His eyes looked at her with admiration and regret. Thank you, Kelly. You've shown me another side of life I'd forgotten. You sacrificed your opportunity for my father. I'm truly sorry for my words and my doubts before. The sincere apology from a man once full of prejudice was proof of a profound change. Kelly saw true remorse in his eyes, a shift from the cold businessman to a man humbled by music and kindness. She felt a quiet triumph, not just for the store, but for the human connection forged. Kelly smiled, shaking his hand. We all have our own ways of loving and protecting what's important, a gentle yet powerful reply. After the successful concert, the old melody was reborn. The store's space filled with new life, attracting more music lovers. Kelly continued to play at the store on weekends. Her saxophone became an indispensable part of the place. Ethan, now truly changed, spent more time with his father. He not only used his business knowledge to help the store grow, but also actively learned about the history of each instrument, cherishing every relic. He even began to learn to play the saxophone himself, starting with the first notes, under the patient guidance of Kelly and his father. The father-son relationship was healed, stronger than ever. A few weeks later, a big surprise came for Kelly. A letter from a prestigious music school arrived, informing her that she had been accepted into a full scholarship program based on her outstanding talent and dedication to music and the community. The letter also mentioned the concert at the Old Melody as a key factor in their decision. Although Kelly had torn up her audition letter earlier, her action created a positive domino effect, far exceeding expectations. Later, Kelly learned that Ethan was the one who had secretly contacted the school, recounted her entire story, and suggested they consider Kelly based on her emotional performance and noble heart. Mr. Arthur, with improved health and boosted spirits, offered Kelly the official position of store manager with a stable salary so he could rest and pass on his legacy. From then on, Kelly had a stable home in New York. The small room behind the store became her true sanctuary. She no longer had to struggle with a nomadic life, but had a solid footing, a new family. She regarded Mr. Arthur and Ethan as her dearest loved one. This was a deserved reward for her sacrifice and kindness, a reward not only in material terms, but also in affection and recognition. She often thought about that torn audition letter, realizing that sometimes letting go of one dream makes space for an even more meaningful reality. One warm afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the antique instruments, Mr. Arthur looked at Kelly and Ethan, his eyes filled with gratitude and happiness. "I am truly fortunate," he said softly, his voice full of emotion. Music brought three people from different walks of life together, creating a symphony of humanity. He looked at Kelly, his eyes full of tenderness. "And Kelly, you sacrificed so much to help me. But I believe kindness will always be rewarded." Kelly smiled, her saxophone playing a warm, lingering melody, blending with Ethan's still clumsy saxophone notes. In the cozy space of the Old Melody, the music echoed, not just the sound of instruments, but the voice of the heart, overcoming all barriers of age, race, and life's differences, rising like an endless symphony of humanity and hope. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.